Hi, everybody. We're now in the very last sentence of the fourth chapter. We'll finish that in a couple of minutes, and then we'll go on to the fifth chapter of Road to Tshuva, the lights of return. And the very last sentence says the following. This is going back, right? The chapter we're on, last chapter, Paradolin. Nimtza or olam kulo v'chidusho l'chol tzurutav b'chol zman v'idam b'tshuva hu talui. It turns out that the light of the world in its entirety, the renewal, every aspect of the world at every time is totally dependent upon teshuvah, right? Which is this forward movement, this inner momentum propelling all the world, all existence forward. V'kol v'chomer oru Mashiach, all the more so the light of Mashiach. That's what we talked about our last session, this notion of the light of Mashiach. All the more so the light of Mashiach, Yeshua Tamashil, the salvation of Israel, the renaissance of the nation and its land, Hasafava Sifrut, the language and literature, Shakom Makor HaTshuva Yotzei, everything is flowing from Tshuva. Mimakim El Muromei HaTshuva Yona Yuvau, and from the very depths to the very heights of supernal repentance they are brought. Okay, so Tshuva is a force in the universe. It's moving everything forward, and everything is dependent upon it. And we talked about the feedback cycle, if you remember that it's not only an internal force, but that it kind of reinforced by our own personal teshuvah. Okay, now I just want to make one comment about one detail that he says here, which captured my interest. And that is when he talks about the things that are kind of expressions of this tshuva force that operates in the world. So he talked about the light of Messiah, Mashiach, the salvation of Israel, the resurrection of the nation and the land. And then he uses this term, the language and literature. Everything is flowing from the source of teshuvah. So that's like, I can understand when you talk about kind of the world manifesting this force that propels things towards divine perfection. If you're going to talk about Mashiach, salvation, resurrection, renaissance, right? But it's sort of language and literature, like, it's sort of, huh? Like, where'd that come from? So I want to just explain what he means by that, and this is based on Rav Shlomo Aviner's explanation. So the way to understand this is from a quote from the Kuzari. The Kuzari was this very, very central work written by Rabbi Yehuda Halevi in the early Middle Ages in Spain, in which the framework is a discussion between this pagan king who decides he wants to give up paganism and wants to become a monotheist, and he meets with a Muslim leader and a Christian leader and a Jewish leader, right? An imam and a priest and a rabbi. Sounds like the beginning of a bad joke. Hey, did you hear the one about the imam, the priest, and the rabbi? So the rabbi, he's asked by the priest, Rabbi, when are you going to give in and eat pork? And the rabbi says to the priest, at your wedding, Father.
Ooh.
So sounds like the beginning of a joke like that. Okay. So, but that's the framework for the book Kuzari. And very soon into the book, this pagan king decides he wants to be Jewish. Okay. So the rest of the book is a conversation between him and the rabbi. And it's a series of questions and answers. And of course, that's the framework for really Rabbi Yehuda Levi telling what are the very fundamentals of Jewish belief and practice. What's it all about? So the king asked the following question. Is Hebrew superior to other languages? Remember, Rav Kook said that the power of tshuva is going to be expressed through the language and literature. What's that all about? So what does that mean? So we'll understand it now through the Kuzari. Is Hebrew superior to other languages? Do we not see distinctly that the latter are more finished and comprehensive? Meaning the Kuzari, this pagan king is speaking in the time of, the so-called golden age of Spain, when Arabic had reached this pinnacle of incredible beauty, producing this exquisite poetry. And so the king says, I don't see any Hebrew like that. Like where is Hebrew produce stuff like that? Okay. So so we're gonna see what he says. Now, by the way, now we can really start. What's fascinating about, remember that this is probably not really the book. I hope I don't upset anybody with this, but it's probably not really a recording of an actual conversation that took place between this king and the rabbi. It's a fiction. Way of getting philosophy. It's exactly, and it's a brilliant way, right? This kind of format. So the very fact that the king would ask that question means that this great rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda Levi, shares in a certain way the concern, like maybe, could it be that Hebrew is inferior? So he answers, it shared the fate of its bearers. What's the it? The Hebrew language. So just like, as he goes on to say, degenerating and dwindling with them, that if we see things that are written in Hebrew in contemporary times, that the Hebrew doesn't seem to be so beautiful, contemporary to Rabbi Yehuda Levi, right? So he says, you know why? Because when the Jewish people are in a state of degeneration and degradation, the way we express ourselves is degenerate and weak, right? It's kind of like, I just thinking of an analogy, somebody's not feeling well, and you got to get up and perform, right? We're going to ask Dr. Larry Coffey, who happens to be a world-renowned tenor, and we're going to ask him to sing an aria for us. But he happens to not be feeling that well. He only slept 2 hours that night, and he's got a cough. Obviously the artistic production is not going to be at its peak. The same thing that language is kind of an artistic expression. When the Jewish people are in a state of degradation, so it's not our artistic production, the way we express ourselves through language, is not going to reflect the potential of what could be. And then the Kuzari goes on. I'm just reading. You don't have this text in front of you. I'm just reading from the Kuzari. Considered historically and logically, its original form is the noblest. The Hebrew is the noblest of languages. It's the original language. It's the divine language. According to tradition, is the language in which God spoke to Adam and Eve, in which the latter conversed. Adam and Eve spoke to each other, not in Yiddish. I know that's shocking, but in Lashon HaKodesh, in the Hebrew tongue. It is proved by the derivation of Adam from Adamah, Isha from Ish, Chaya from Chai, and so on. See, if you look at the people's names, you can see that Adam spoke Hebrew, or that's his original language. Because what was his name? Adam, Adam. Adam means Adamah, earth. He's taken from the earth. So it can't be that the first human being is called Mr. Earth if the original language is not Hebrew, which in Hebrew, Adam, Adamah, earth. Okay. Okay. So, but there was because the Jewish people were sent into exile, and so then there was a process of this sort of degradation which took place. Okay, now we can understand Rav Kook. So Rav Kook is saying that this force of forward evolution, which is going to bring the salvation of Israel, the renaissance of the nation and the land. So just as the land will become verdant and produce the most beautiful fruits and vegetables, etc., as the forces of tshuva operate in the world, the Hebrew language will flower. And we will see once again the full beauty of the Hebrew language. And I just point out as sort of an aside, I've had a chance, because I love the writings of Rav Hanan Porat. I sometimes in my drashot on Shabbat share his thoughts with you. And those of you who are out there in China, or I get sometimes people watch these things from all over the world. So come to Knesset Israel Torah Center every Shabbat morning, and you can. I can't record it, right? As Orthodox scenario, we don't do that kind of thing. So, but I quote Rav Hanan Porat a lot, because he has these beautiful essays in which he ties in each weekly Torah portion with a poem, a Hebrew poem. And often his poems are poems written in the past 100 years. And I sometimes, I'm not a big expert in contemporary Hebrew poetry, but I sometimes read these read these poems, and I'm just awed and moved by the beauty of these poems. And these poems are written in the past 100 years because they represented the kind of this refocus. Those of you who are sort of familiar with classical, let's say not classical in the real sense of classical, but the way rabbinic Hebrew. So rabbinic Hebrew that's been written, let's say when rabbis write, things over the past hundreds of years, it's not particularly beautiful Hebrew. It's actually even a lot of grammatical mistakes. See a lot of that, because it's just, there's a kind of a, I hate to say this, maybe I shouldn't record this. It's kind of like a sloppiness. It's just like, let's say somebody asked me a halacha question, not me, but a great rabbi, right? So that's called, and the rabbi writes an answer. That's called Sheilot Teshuvah, right? Sheilot Teshuvot. So the rabbi writes a teshuvah. He doesn't like say, how can I say this idea in the most beautiful way from the point of view of language? Just, he just writes it. And usually in a kind of, a lot of sort of Aramaic and Hebrew kind of mixed together. And sometimes even grammatical mistakes, not so careful about, feminine, masculine, plural, singular, all this kind of stuff. And not necessarily like, how can I say this in the most beautiful way? It just wasn't the focus. Okay. So you see this like in the past 100 years as a result of a kind of reflecting the power of tshuva, which is operating the world, and bringing the flowering of the land is also bringing a kind of renewal of attention to writing beautiful Hebrew. And you see this nowadays across the board, sometimes in a not so religious framework, and also in a religious framework of beautiful things that are written, even when rabbis write now, that they try to write in a way they pay attention more so than in the past to, it should be grammatically correct, of course, and even flowery and moving language. Okay, let's start now. Parak 5, Parak Hay, chapter Hay, and Rav Kook says the following. This is an amazing chapter. It's actually, it's amazing, and in a certain sense, it's hard to talk about in good company, as you'll see. He says the following. So we are Parak Hay. Nishama bria beguf bari, muchrachat hi lavo lidei haoshar gadol shel tshuva v'hi margeshet ba et haoneg hativi hayoter gadol. By the way, Rav Kook's Hebrew exemplifies this idea. His Hebrew is extremely beautiful. He says a healthy neshama, healthy soul that's in a healthy body, must come to the full happiness of tshuva. It senses that natural delight, the most natural delight, which is that delight of teshuvah. Okay, let's just pause here for a second. So Rav Kook uses this expression, which is healthy mind and a healthy body, right? That's a widespread idea. And we sometimes forget this, that we must have a neshama bria, a healthy soul, but we have to have a guf bari, a healthy body as well. And, sometimes Jews don't pay attention to that so much, okay? And Baruch Hashem, we have people in this room, among the 500 people that are in the room right now participating live in the shiur. So we have everybody here really is aware of this, and we have our faithful Gabbai Balkore over here, who's an exemplar, everybody here, but Larry Weinstein, in case you haven't heard from him all over the world, he's amazing vegetarian cook. And I was able to sample it just this last Friday night. Remember? Right. So that's a certain awareness that we have to live a godly life also means eating healthy. And the Rambam says that having a healthy body, I'm quoting, that having a healthy body is of the paths of the Lord. It's the godly path to have a healthy body. A person cannot understand or know anything about Hashem if they're sick, right? If you're sick, your mental powers are degraded. So health is a very important quality here. So Rav Kook is saying that the healthy body with a healthy neshama is going to come to the greatest level of tshuva, and that's the greatest delight. Now, the point he's making here is we often think of teshuvah as one of the 613 mitzvot and a response to catastrophe. I sinned. Uh-oh. Okay, I got to do something about it. It's called tshuva. Not true. Tshuva is not something after the fact. It is the animating force of everything. To use the Aramaic Talmudic terms, you may have heard of these terms, lechatchila and b'diavad or b'diavad. Okay, right? B'diavad, after the fact, the Aramaic term, which means something was done already. So, right, if a drop of milk falls into your vat of chicken soup, so that's after the fact, it fell in, and you can drink your soup, no problem, okay, because it's nullified, that small drop. However, you wouldn't say, oh, look at this great recipe I found online. It says your chicken soup would be much better if you put a little bit of milk in it. So that you're not allowed to do. So you might think tshuva is like that. Tshuva is not something that you want to do. It's like, I prefer I didn't sin, right? It's just, oh, I sinned. Okay, now there's tshuva. No, tshuva is the animating force of all of our existence and all of existence, okay? Now, he takes this one step further. He says the following. He says the following. You know, when a body is healthy, there's an expression of having a healthy functioning body, which is extremely important. And as one gets older, one sees this even more. That is the expulsion of elements which damage the body. So the expulsion of these elements that are negative, it is the most healthy and healing aspect of a functioning body. Now, everybody understand what he's talking about here? Right? Let's just call it a spade. Going to the bathroom. As I once heard it said, comparing the kind of change in aspirations that we have as we grow. You know, there are people that are 30 years old and that they yearn as the highest aspiration of life when they're 30 years old to have a BMW. Yeah, and they were 50 years old. Their highest aspiration is for a BM. Right? So you'll forgive me for that joke. But the being able to have a proper bowel movement, I have to just speak in plain language here because Rav Kook is doing. That is the sign of a healthy body. The fact that it is the normal process. Having a bowel movement is not, oh my God, something happened. My body dysfunctioned. I had a bowel movement. I don't know what happened. I was just, no, that excreting elements which are undesirable to the body is the normal functioning and healthy function, absolutely necessary functioning of the body. You know what he's comparing having a bowel movement to? Tshuva. Wow. Tshuva is a kind of a spiritual bowel movement. Amazing idea. It is the most healthy and joyful experience of being a human. Just think of that. Ongoing tshuva is the healthiest expression of the organism. We'll have to pause with this amazing idea, and we'll go on tomorrow. B'ezrat Hashem.